Today's the last day that we're going to be looking at the series of the Athens series with Paul. And I encourage you to turn with your Bibles to Romans chapter 12. We are only going to be looking at one verse in depth, but probably lots of other verses we're going to talk about. But this is the time of year that we celebrate love. In my 25 years of being a pastor, about 45% of the weddings are during July, August, first part of September. I mean, I'm just in the middle of doing 3 weeks in a row with weddings, then a week off, and then there's a couple more weddings. 45% of the weddings for myself are all within this short time period of 3 months. But it's always interesting. I always think this is sort of funny. And don't mean to pick on anybody, but I'm going to pick on you, Joey. Come on up, Joey. What happens is wedding rehearsals. And not meaning to pick on anybody that has recently been married or not, but it's always interesting. I know, I'm picking on your girlfriend too. You could get on a knee. No, I'm just... I'm just teasing. What is so interesting to me, this is the time of love, but what happens so often at rehearsals? Now, as I say, some of you were just married a week ago or just yesterday, but some of you I did your weddings some years ago. But typically at rehearsals, when the couple stands either here or where they are, they stand and they're like, we want to get married. But what do during the rehearsal? And the guy sits with his hands in his pocket. And then when I haul the paper out, they both look at the paper. They don't want to look at each other. And what do I have to do? Pull the hand out, do the hand there, and say, okay, do you two love each other? Okay, don't look at me if you love each other. Look at each other. I mean, a lot of you have seen me do this before. Look at each other. Because you're here. Because for the couple, they're here because they want to get married. But it's like during the rehearsal time, they're like, we really don't want to look at... No, we do. Thank you. Do you get what I'm saying with that? The fact that it's a time of love, but we have a hard time sometimes looking at each other. And even when we're getting married, to look at each other, you want to look at what I've written down on my piece of paper. Love. It's a time of love, but it's interesting because all you got to do is listen to the news, and you hear there's really a lot of lack of love. A lot of lack of love. Chicago last year had over, what was it? I wrote it down. 300 murders last year. I have it someplace on my notes. One of the most years or most murders for the year was 2012 for Chicago. Think about what's going on in Egypt right now with the Muslim Brotherhood and all that's taking place. Around 800 people have been killed in the last couple of days. That there was a group of Muslim Brotherhood people who went to a mosque for protection, but then they started shooting out of the mosque, and the mosque was taken down, and people died. Think about what's going on over in Afghanistan yet. Since we pulled out this past week, it's 35 people have been killed with car bombings. Well, it's a season of love. And yet, you look around the world and you realize there's a lot of people that don't love each other. There's a lot of hatred in the world. Go back to Egypt. In the last couple of months, there have been 40 Coptic churches. And if you've never heard what the Coptic church is, I encourage you to get online, check it out. It's one of the oldest branches of Christianity, the Coptic church in Egypt. There's been over 40 churches that have either been burned or ransacked. Things have been stolen. Just this past week, there were 2 Catholic schools in Egypt. One in Cairo, the Catholic school was overtaken by radicals, and the 3 nuns that worked there were paraded like POWs. Until as they were going through some of the streets, another Egyptian lady saw the three nuns as teachers, and she took them into her house and protected them. Somebody in her family was a police officer. You know, we can sit here and we can say, well, it's a time of love. But the question really is there love around us? And really the question is, where's the love within inside our own lives and our hearts? Well, if you've been here the last 3 weeks or spent this past week here at Bible school, you'll understand that we've been talking about the Apostle Paul and his second missionary journey. And Paul went through Thessalonica, Philippi, Berea, Corinth, Athens, all of the towns from Acts, it's like Acts, 12 to Acts 18 or so for his second journey. All of the towns except Athens, Paul is run out of. Philippi, he's thrown into jail with Silas. You can remember that story. Other towns, they were stoned. The first missionary journey, he was run out of towns, usually by Jewish people. And so Paul, who is facing this hostility from Jewish people, but also from Greeks, because a few of the towns, it was the business leaders that wanted to get him out of town because he was espousing not worshiping all these other gods, so the business people lost their income. But Paul has the audacity to say in Romans 12, verse 9, love must be sincere. I mean, don't you have some of the times in your life those people you really want to get back at? Those that have maybe said something mean to you? Those, or maybe you know they gossiped behind your back? Those that sort of two-timed you and we sort of want to somehow get them back a little bit? Or we don't want them to be part of our life anymore. We shut them out and say, nope, they're not part of our life anymore. Well, look at what the Apostle Paul went through in his life and his ministry. He still has the audacity to say, love must be sincere. Well, what does the Greek word there mean, sincere? What is that word? It really means love must not be hypocritical. It must be without hypocrisy. Without hypocrisy. Some of you remember what the word hypocrisy means in Greek? Have I not been doing my teaching very well over these last years? Nobody? Will you all remember this next time I ask in a few years? Sure, yeah, right. Hypocrite. But within the Greek, remember what the Greek word for hypocrite means? Who said that? Yes, an actor. Thank you very much, Barb. An actor. The Greek word for a hypocrite is to be an actor. Somebody who plays a part who they really are not. Some of the Greek plays, they used to have the mask that they would put on. Play a part for somebody they are not. There's another definition which is interesting, that it's an old definition, but it still fits today. A politician who runs on one platform, and once he or she is in office, votes another way. That's a hypocrite within the Greek definition. One who runs on one platform but votes something else. One who says one thing in the public eye and then actually does something behind closed doors. And I wonder, how many of us do that? How many of us maybe wear those masks and become the actors with one another? But behind closed doors, we do different things. Things that we would not want to come out in the light. So Paul says, who has been used and abused, stoned, left for dying, dead, beaten, stripped. He says, love must be sincere. You cannot be a hypocrite. You cannot, within your life, wear that mask. The word also means, within Latin, it means to take a vase